How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another installment of Tech Support Thursday. Let me dial back the audio just a little bit so that I don't look like I'm shouting. So, as with every other installment of Tech Support Thursday, we're going to go through and answer some of the questions that you guys have asked. So, without any further ado, we're going to start back on last week's Tech Support Thursday, ticket 16. This will be ticket 17. It's hard to believe that we're 17 tickets in already. But you know what? That's why we make it, that's why I did this, so I can answer your questions and give, instead of trying to answer them individually. So before I actually start answering any questions, I want to take a couple minutes and talk a little bit about some real world stuff that I've been dealing with lately, and kind of go talk through some of the stuff that I've been dealing with as now that I'm back in the engineering world, because I spent, for those of you that know me, I spent a couple years working for a training company, and the main driver of the training company was to focus on getting folks that were not in the IT industry already and getting them trained up to eventually earn their CCNA and break into IT. It's a great concept, right? However, the problem with just about any training company long term is that you get in a rut as an instructor to where you aren't keeping up with current IT skills. Like, you're so heavily focused on providing the training and building the material that goes along with the training that you need to walk people through and do demonstrations on, that the things that you normally would be learning or you would be having to troubleshoot or having to learn in the real world were never touched on. So those of you that come from like a sports world would refer to this as an atrophy. An atrophy means that the muscle or the muscle, the skills they've gotten rusty, right? And that's what I found myself, a couple of conversations with some customers, and I'm rusty. And I attribute that to not doing my due diligence in staying current with technology. And yeah, I covered VXLAN and some other stuff and stuff like that, but I got kind of complacent, if you will. No, not if you will. I got complacent, and we're like, oh yeah, I can just recall it off the top of my head. Well, for some of the technologies that are on the routing and switching CCIE blueprint, I'm going to call it routing and switching because it's still what it is. All they've done is they added SD access and SD WAN. It's still 90% route switch. A lot of those technologies I still know, and I can configure most of them off the top of my head. But if you get into any super crazy designs and stuff like that, I might scratch my head, like, okay, how do I make this work? So I attribute working for a training company and not having, and with the training being geared to the basics. It's what it is. They were geared to the basics. You tend to only go as far as you need to in order to get the basics covered. And the problem with the basics is you never grow. You can master the basics, right? The problem with it, though, is if you never take yourself beyond the basics, you never become a stronger engineer. And that's one of the key reasons why I decided I wanted to go back in engineering was I didn't feel like my skill sets were being utilized. And I have a CCIE, a decade of experience, and I was just like, I would push consistently to do more and stuff like that, and management was just like, well, that's not the direction we want to go. And I was basically told, nope, that's not what we're going to be. And so I was like, all right, well, if you guys want to just teach the basics, then I'm out. So, and because of that, and because of the fact that my skills had gotten rusty, I'm finding it now where I am learning new technologies. I'm pretty heavily VMware focused, but however, not only VMware. I'm also focusing on core routing and switching. I'm also focused on the data center. And I'm getting projects that need me to be, I need to go back through. And so I'm working on a rather large topology. It's on my other screen. I'm not really prepared to share it right now because it's still a work in progress. But I'm going to basically gear it towards real world engineering, where there's going to be CCNA, CCNP, and CCIE level topics covered on it. And I'm going to go into a lot of detail on what we do. I don't know when it's going to get released. I'm still trying to work through it, but it's got firewalls, routers, switches, VPNs, MPLS, DMVPN, Nexus, VXLAN. It's a robust deployment, but it's actually mimicking something similar to what one of my customers is working on right now that I have to be knowledgeable on. So with that being said, I am having to create more complicated labs, and it's making me go back through and having to sort of relearn some things because it's been so long since I've played with them. And that's good because now I'm keeping my currency sharp in that particular area. And one of the things that I do in my spare time when I don't listen to technical podcasts because I feel like I'm watching like a Cisco live video. I like listening to non-technical podcasts. Like I'll listen to military-based podcasts. I'm real big listening to former Navy SEALs talk about their time in the Navy and leadership and, development of skills in the teams that they had to go through and how their training rotation cycles worked. And there's a lot of correlation between what they do trying to bring up their skills to a certain level, and then there's the way we do stuff in the IT world. And one of the things that became very obvious to me is one of the things that they talked about in the podcast I was listening to last night was you'll get a group of guys that'll be in this team that might have, 5, 6, 7 years on that team. And then you'll get a new guy that comes into the team that, just passed through the training pipeline, gets approval. Now he's on the SEAL team, and then they're going through their training rotation, right? They have, from my understanding, they have an 18-month training workup where they work out and train and stuff like that for 18 months, and they go on a 6-month deployment. So, but they start at the basics, right? Every time they go through a training workup, and that's good because then you're never losing the basics, right? You're always network fundamentals, and in their case, I'm sure that there's specific training that they go through, like diving and land warfare and things like that. I'm regurgitating words that I heard from the podcast. I don't have any direct experience with this myself, but network fundamentals, reading TCP/IP, reading through some of the RFCs, doing some basic BGP labs, and stuff like that. These are the things that I've been spending some time doing because I need to. And so my proficiency level in some of these technologies has gone down because I have not spent the adequate amount of time needed in order to keep them proficient. So having conversations with some of the internal folks that I work with and then being on customer calls has brought to my attention that some of my skills have become inefficient with them, which tells me, okay, I need to go spend some time. Now, I can't focus 100% of my time on VMware. I need to go focus on Cisco Route Switch because that's what I am supposed to be a subject matter expert in. I still remember a lot of the technical details to stuff, but with that same thing said, you can't be 100% on point 100% of the time. It's not feasible for a human being. So I'm spending some time building labs and going through the technology, and basically the topology that I've created in Eve will be a data center integrated with a campus WAN or campus LAN connected to internet connectivity, connected to VPN connectivity, connected to private WAN, so on and so forth. And with the eventuality of doing additional things like high, I will say high speed because high speed is the wrong term. High speed stuff, not circuits, not speeds and feeds necessarily, but some more technical content like multicast routing, MSDP, diving into some things that I haven't touched in a long time. So I'm diving into these things because these are what the customers I'm working with are deploying, and they've got deployed. So I need to bring up my technical proficiency to be at the level that they need to be. So I'm kind of always evaluating my current skill set and my current comfort level and my confidence level with the projects that I'm working on. I'd say that I have some work to do in order to get to that technical proficiency that I used to have. So one thing that I've learned is when you are in a job, whether you're a technical instructor, whether it's at the CCNA level or at the CCIE level, it's obviously going to be easier for those folks that are at the CCIE level to be more technically proficient because they're working at a much higher level. When you're teaching at the CCNA level, you're going to get folks that don't understand the basics, right? Why do we need an IP address and why do we need a MAC address? I know why. To me, it's like, okay, and some of the times it would be like, I'm trying to work myself through a lab, and I get that question, and instead of having to stop and spend a couple minutes trying to explain it, I'd be like, I'll say, okay, hold that question. I will come back to it once I'm done doing the lab, because then I'll have some demo. I'll be able to show you why. It's part of the demonstration. So I had to come up with different ways of doing it, but because of the fact that I spent so long not going to that deeper level, some of those skills became rusty, and that bothers me. And because of the fact that, to me, there's a level of integrity and what's the word I'm looking for? Integrity is the wrong word. I would say there's a level of proficiency that I should be able to, I need to maintain as a CCIE. And right now, I feel like my skills in that area are a bit rusty. So I had to think about the commands before I typed them. So that's okay, though. That's why they call it labbing. That's why they call it learning. So I'm using the topology that I've built. It's a big one to do that. And as I'm going through, I'll record myself going through and stuff like that. And then I'll post those videos to YouTube at a later point in time. But the idea is to bring myself up to the level that I feel like I need to be at. And not to say that I can't do the job, because I mean, I can configure, if I need to do BGP traffic engineering for inbound and outbound traffic, I still know how to do that, right? I can still create a prefix list. I can tie that prefix list to a route map. I can tie that route map to a BGP neighbor to affect how that BGP traffic is going to be forwarded inbound and outbound. The how has not left, right? And I have a ridiculous amount of notes that if I ever need to fall back to something, guess what? I can go look them up, and I'm right there. So it's not, the knowledge is already there, right? It's just going through and labbing it up again and making sure that, yes, I do know exactly how this works and why I need to do it the way that I need to do it. But it's that piece right there, that the knowing where to type things in and why you're doing what you're doing, that stuff really never went away. But to me, I'm not as proficient in it as I want to be. With that being said, I will go through and talk through some of the questions that I've got here as we finish up. But I wanted to put that out there because there's this, some folks have this, they view technical instructors, trainers, whatever you want to call us, the folks that are out, they're putting themselves out there, like myself, on YouTube or a Udemy, a Pluralsight, or any other training provider, that, we've got all the answers. And the answer to that, and which couldn't be further from the truth. I don't have all the answers. Though what I do have is the ability to go look something up if I don't know what I'm doing. Or if I have a question, I know how to use Google and eventually find the answer. Or might have to Google something 10 different ways because I'm not exactly sure what it is I'm trying to get after. The point being here is I know that I'm weak in some areas, and it's my job as an engineer to fix that. And then, so I did a self-assessment on what I feel comfortable doing, and like for example, I'm on a call with a customer. I'm not the lead. I'm just shadowing somebody, or I'm learning because another engineer left the company and they're bringing in a couple of other resources, me being one of them, to help with this particular project. And I understand what's being talked about. It's not hard to understand. It's not the it's not the design that's difficult to understand. It's the tactical implementation that needs to be drilled down. And that's one of the things that I need to go back through and lab up, since it's been a while since I've done that. So with that being said, that's kind of where I'm coming from right now. It's a honest, transparent assessment of my current skill set, and I don't think I'll have a hard time getting back up to that proficiency level. But right now, I don't feel like I'm there. But guess what? That's why we lab. That's why we train, and so we can get better. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into these questions. There's quite a few of them from Tech Support Thursday Ticket 16. So let's go ahead and read through these. Good stuff. Speak the truth. You probably answered this question in the past. However, we're curious if you purchase your own study material, books, or attend vendor boot camps when you are obtaining your certs, etc. So I think I answered this one, but all of the above. I never attend vendor boot camps unless they're free or my company is paying for me to go. So over the past few years, I have not been able to go to a boot camp because, like, my former employer didn't see the value of me going to a boot camp because it didn't directly benefit the instruction team by sending me to a boot camp. So there wasn't really anything that I was going to learn from a boot camp anyway that I didn't already know. So, but that being said, boot camps are optional if you want to go through them. To me, boot camps, VMware has one for the VCP called the Install, Configure, Manage, or the ICM course, which is required for you to earn your VCP. I took mine in 2014. So as long as I keep my VCP and my VMware certs active, then I'll never have to worry about doing that. Because then, as long as you have a VCP in one particular track, I got my first one in data center, then you can go take NSX, and then you can take desktop mobility and any other VCPs that might be out there. You can work your way through those. But I will tend to look for official certification guides for the particular topic that I'm covering. I'll look for a video course on it. I look at the reviews. If there's the ability of doing a preview of the content, I'll listen to the content to see if it's, number one, if I can understand the instructor. There are some instructors out there that are very difficult to understand, and that can be detrimental to the learner, because if you are trying to learn something and that thing that you're trying to understand what's being conveyed and you don't understand it, you might not understand it the way that it's trying to be explained or the way that it's supposed to be taught, because you might not understand what's being said. So I don't want to say a language barrier necessarily, but accents do tend to play a part in that. There are people out there that have very thick accents, and there are some Indians that I've worked with, not to pick on the Indians, people from India, that have worked in India or are from India, and they have some very, very thick accents. Sometimes it is very difficult to understand them. Sometimes I might have to ask them to slow down and repeat themselves, and it's like, I apologize, it's not you, it's me, I'm having a hard time understanding you. And a lot of times if you put it's me, not you, that tends to, they'll repeat themselves. A lot of them are really cool about doing that. Other times, I have worked with some folks from Nigeria and Africa, and they also have some very thick accents. And so sometimes I've had to have them slow down and repeat themselves so that I can understand them as well. But you just be respectful about it, right? That's all I've done. Like, sorry, it's not you, it's me. I'm having a really hard time understanding what you're trying to say. Can you slow what you're saying down? If it's a pre-recorded video, I will intentionally slow it down. Or if there's closed captioning, I'll try to use that. But you have to be able to understand the instructor. First and foremost, if you can't understand the instructor, you're going to have a hard time working your way through it, and it's not going to make the course enjoyable. As simple as that. So I will purchase a book. I spend a fair amount of money on technical books, video courses. For VCP, I must have spent probably close to $150, $200 on training material between a couple of books, a couple of video series, and stuff like that, because I needed the deeper technical instruction. And sometimes what you find on YouTube or what you find on blogs just isn't sufficient. There's a comment on here. Thanks, Rob. Of course, I'll recreate SP topology if you haven't. No problem. So that comment was coming from one of my longtime subscribers and a longtime member, based off of your icon. Because basically they asked if I had the SP topology. I do not have the SP topology, so they're going to go ahead and recreate it. And then the other comment on here was, use secure copy to download cert from the server in SD-WAN, because some people were commenting that they couldn't figure out how to do it. And that's one of the other things, is some folks are not willing to well, I shouldn't say they're not willing to. They don't specify what they've done to try to fix the problem or to try to troubleshoot it. Some people will just ask me, hey, this isn't working. And I'm like, well, okay, well, what'd you do to try to fix it? And did you do anything? And some people take that the wrong way, and it's like, well, I have no idea how your topology is set up. You have no indication based off of your YouTube handle that you're not a member, because when you become a member of my channel, there's a little icon that shows up to the right of your name. So I can tell whether you're a member or not. If you're not a member and you're asking for it, I'll tell you to become a member. Not everybody can be, because the join capability isn't available in all the countries, and I understand that. I typically work with those folks that don't have the ability of doing that. But other folks they just don't put the effort in needed to try to troubleshoot something. They run into a problem, they immediately wave the white flag asking for help. I'm not a big fan of that, because I can't wave the white flag on a lot of things, because most of the stuff that I'm doing, not a lot of other people have done. They're not learning to the level that I'm learning at, or they haven't covered it. So some blog posts will cover it, but I'm learning it to a deeper level. I try to take things as far as I can within the confines of my capabilities. Not everybody does that. That's fine, but I don't have the luxury of, like, hey, I need help, can you help me? And some people will, some people won't. Running like bolts, keep up that momentum, and you'll get to be a unicorn. I'm assuming you mean Usain Bolt, the current world record holder for the 100 and 200 meter sprint. Jamaican guy, super fast. Big fan of Usain Bolt. An SD-WAN 3, SD-WAN VPNs, controller, and SD-WAN controller setup. Completed lab 4, good lab. I'm glad you like it. Another member as well. And this segment routing on iOS XR. What XRV version do you use in EVE-NG? And the answer to that is 6.1.3. Let's see. SD-WAN 4, onboarding vEdges to the controllers. I can't install a vEdge certificate getting below error. Please advise. Show certificate serial. Certificate not installed yet, giving up. Chassis number. Show certificate serial. So what this person basically was trying to accomplish, and I think I remember, yeah, see, this guy got it working, was when you're trying to install on the vEdges, you needed to install the CA certificate first. And then once you install the CA certificate, then you could go and generate a identity certificate that you could take to the certificate authority, or the CA. That would generate a signed identity certificate by the CA that everyone's going to trust, including the controllers. And then you would install that on the vEdge, and that would kick you out a certificate serial. then that certificate serial would be able to be manually added to vManage and then pushed down to the vSmart and vBond, and that would allow you to bring the vEdge online. And basically, this particular person was able to fix that. Another comment on tech support Thursday 16. This is exactly how it is on the job too, Rob. Essentially, a coworker asked me, "How do you fix that?" And I ask, "What troubleshooting have you done?" They always say, "None. Why are people like this?" It's kind of par for the course in my experience. Not everybody is willing to put in the time and the effort. Simple as that. Some people, they are great as long as everything that they're trying to do is working, but the moment they hit any type of obstacle, no matter how big or small it might be, they immediately freak out and they don't know what to do. So those folks, I tend to have to do a little bit of hand holding, but you know what, it is what it is. On SD-WAN 4, onboarding vEdges to the controllers, this is the same person again. Puts in here request. So on the vEdge, you request root cert chain install home admin pki.ca, and then you upload it. So the error, if you're reading this reading through the comments, what ended up happening was the certificate that they tried to install wasn't valid for some reason, which could be a time issue, which is normally what it is. On vEdge 2 is where they were doing this, and then they made some adjustment and they got it to work, which is most often the case. This either the time on the vEdge is not the right time, so the certificate that you're trying to install isn't valid yet from the root CA. SD-WAN 20 Service VPN 1 NAT static NAT port address translation. Oh, unknown hero, thanks for pipe tab in output. That was something obviously that person was happy to get response from. So I'm glad that was able to. Let's see here. Let me scroll down here. I lost my place. Let me see here. Whoops, too far. So on service provider, Intra AS L2 VPN 19 HVPLS ELAN NPE BGP AD with LDP signaling. It's a mouthful. Hey Rob, do you have any videos explaining Lisp in an easy way? Kind of rough understanding the concept by reading the documents. I have never covered Lisp, not because I don't want to. It's just that whenever I've gone through to cover it, trying to come up with a legit use case, I've never seen anybody deploy in production. It's out there in the wild. What it's doing in the wild, I have no idea. So at some point I will, but right now I just have not. SD-WAN 4, onboarding vEdges to the controllers, another commenter. Hey Rob, thanks for your beautiful videos. I'm using 19.1. I just installed root certificate chain on vEdge, added the chassis number as well as the serial number in vManage and also vBond, but the vEdges do not appear in vManage GUI. So I responded to this one. I knew almost right away what the answer to this one was because I ran into this problem myself and I remember it. Typically speaking, if you try to add the vEdges after you've installed the root CA and then you've taken the root CA and then you generate a identity certificate request, identity CSR certificate signing request, and you take that output to the CA and then you get assigned by the CA identity certificate back, a granted certificate. You take that information. One second here, I'm getting a lot of all of a sudden everybody wants to say hi. once you get that identity certificate signed by the CA back, you take it and you paste it into the V shell of the V Edge, and then the certificate will be installed, and then you can do a show certificate serial. You'll get all the information you need, including the serial number, and then you add that manually to the vManage. But if the certificate on the vEdge isn't active yet, or your time on the vEdge is before the validity time, beginning validity value, the certificate won't be valid, and therefore you'll have to go in and make sure that the time has been changed. So time is usually the issue with that, and I ran into that myself. And once you identify what the problem is, it's pretty easy to fix. But that can be a pain in the buttocks if you're working with it and you don't know what the problem actually is. So this particular person was able to get it fixed, though, because I said check the certificate beginning of validity time versus the clock, and if they're not the same, or you're before the validity value, then the certificate won't be valid yet. RRTC live stream VMware Lab rebuild. So on Monday of this week that I'm recording this video on, I went live for 3.5 hours and rebuilt my VMware Home Lab so that I could deploy NSXT and stuff like that. I got a little bit further, and I'm starting to record the videos for that. It's going to take some time, though, because I want to do a good job with it. But this comment was, "This is awesome," with an exclamation point. I'm glad you enjoy it. Cisco IOS XR Basics 1, the initial configuration steps. Love you, bro, from India. God bless you. You are too honest. Well, I appreciate that. RRTC, Rob Riker's Tech Channel. Live stream VMware Lab rebuild. Yesterday I spoke about my IBM server with 768 gigs of RAM. Could you point me to how I start mining with it? I have no idea. It's been such a long time since I played with that. I don't even know if any of the stuff that I would use would be still legit. I would Google mining on your server. That's one option for you. So SD-WAN 4 onboarding vEdges to the controllers, same user as before. Got it done with vEdge 1 and vEdge 2 setup. So they made whatever changes that they needed to in order to get vEdge 1 and vEdge 2 to show up inside of the vManage console, which is what they were looking for. So good work there. I know that was once I finally got the vEdges to show up and I was able to do the provisioning steps and build the fabric, that was the big thing right there, and then I was off to the races. Segment routing on iOS XR. Do I need some extra configuration? I'm testing on XR 6.1.3 and I get the correct forwarding MPLS table, but when I trace route, the path is not over SR and all my adjacency SIDs are set on 0. There is a configuration to prefer SR path over the IGP. Yes, there is. And you have to type in that you want to prefer the segment routing path over the IGP path. It's inside of the traffic engineering metrics. You can go and do a follow the TE metrics versus the IGP metrics. And I believe that's what you need to type in. MPLS segment routing preferred, I believe, is the command. It's been a long time since I've played with that, though. Although I was given some consideration to going after the SPCCIE, just some consideration. Now that the labs are open, actually they opened up today, the 15th, I believe, is when they kicked off. SD-WAN 5 bringing up MPLS transport. Rob, can we have the MPLS router config because I want to be sync with the videos? And you can. This person does not have an icon to the right of their name. So if you, and I responded to this question because, I didn't want to wait till today. But the answer to the question is you can. If you become a member, you can download the SD-WAN topology as well as the initial configs. Security VPN, Ike v2, LAN to LAN 5, iOS router to iOS router, GRE over IPsec. Rob, hello. Can I get the initial config for FlexVPN Lab? I'm sorry, I do not have that. I'll respond to that as well. Security VPN, Ike v2, FlexVPN 2, Ike authorization policy, and dynamic routing. Hello, Rob. No need to reboot to solve redistribution problem. You need in BGP config solve IBGP redistribution, because by default only eBGP routes will redistribute. You will need to write explicitly something like BGP redistribute internal, and that might very well be the fix. This person's obviously pretty well versed in some of this stuff. So we have security VPN. So I actually remember in some of these videos I released them because I was most of the way through them and I wanted to just wrap it up, where I was trying to test failover, and the failover wasn't quite working. So I said, Rob, I understand. So the video is security VPN, Ike v2, FlexVPN 6, dual hub, single cloud with router client. Rob, I understood that you need to config track boolean, something like this, track 102 boolean, and track 100, not track 101. If track 100 down and track 101 up, then track 102 will be up. Yeah, I'm going to just say, okay, sure. But I know what you're trying to say, although I'm not going to try to explain it here because I would butcher my response. It would be like, wait, what are you talking about? So, but yes, I will. I've seen what you're I know what you're talking about will probably be the answer, but off the top of my head, I'd have to go and demo that specific solution to see if that would work. VMware NSXT Data Center exam passed to V041.20. Hi Rob, thanks for sharing your experience on passing this exam. Can you please tell me the other Udemy course that you purchased apart from the Trainer Test NSXT 3.0 video series by Rick Krishi? And that is the only thing that I purchased off of. Actually, I didn't buy it off of Udemy. I bought it off of Trainer Test directly, because Udemy only had 2.4 and I wanted 3.0. And so his course was not bad. I was a little disappointed that he didn't do more labs, but that's when you're an independent author and independent instructor, you can pretty much do what you want. But he was more heavily focused on the theory that you guys would need to know in order to answer the questions on the exam, not necessarily what the clickety-click stuff looks like, which I can respect. So I wish it would have gone deeper than it did, but it was still good content. I learned a lot about how SD or NSXT works, so there's that. So that is the end of our questions. I want to thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with me. We are quickly approaching the 25,000 subscriber mark, and I'm pretty shocked at how consistently people are coming to the channel and subscribing, and the video views that I'm getting. It's actually kind of cool to see the channel grow and stuff like that. So I'm trying to create content that people can actually use, right? It's not just, I'm not trying to just create, just a, hey, check this out, or you need to go learn this now type stuff. I'm not into that. To me, that's more like feel-good IT, which I'm sure for some folks, they're there for the content. I mean, every YouTuber is different, right? I have just a different way of doing things. I would like to have just enough content on my channel to where it covers Cisco, VMware, eventually AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and then some Microsoft content. All the major stuff. I'm not sure if I would get into any Linux, but a lot of that cool stuff that you would do, and then put a bunch of videos into playlists, and then people can just start watching the content. I want to have the channel big enough with enough content on it to where I'm not worried about having to release new content I can just let the content that's been there for a little bit kind of just do its thing, right? Unless it's after I'd say 2.5, 3 years, content starts to get a little bit dated, and you need to upgrade it. So stuff like that does come into play. So for example, the VPN content will have to get updated. The SD-WAN content will have to get updated. I'll have to do some more content on service provider. I am planning on doing a enterprise update. So I did start recording enterprise for NARCI and Encore, and then I got sidetracked. And when I started, I was still working for the training company. And now that I'm not, I'm back into real world engineering again. I'm thinking now is a good time to go through and do a kind of a refresher, deep dive into it again, because I need to do it for my job. It's not, well, I don't really feel like doing that because I have a lot of time to lab stuff up, and part of my job is to work with the customer and come up with a solution. So I'm labbing anyway. So I have to play that. I have to play that part anyway. So with that being said, I will be covering some content here. If you see stuff coming out called real world engineering or real world networking, that's literally what it's going to be. And it's going to be a combination of Encore and NARCI. There's going to be some service provider stuff into it. There's going to be some data center stuff into it. There's going to be some security with firewalls and VPN. It's going to be kind of a holistic approach to stuff. There's some other stuff that I want to throw in there as well, but for right now, I'm covering what is, for me, is in the foreground, or stuff that I'm going to be immediately needing out of the gate, because that's the type of stuff that I want to do. So a lot of cool stuff coming. So if you guys are interested in seeing any of that, I will be hopefully releasing that soon. But I'm also going to be trying to knock out some other VMware stuff. So I have a lot of really cool plans. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was come up with a real world networking series that was not just 20, 30 videos on a particular topic and voila, there you go, which is kind of topic specific, like SD-WAN, VXLAN, that type of stuff. I wanted to do a very large topology that simulated a very big network that people could relate to. And by doing it this way, I feel like I'm going to be coming off better than I would be if I was to just come up with a bunch of small topologies and be hyper specific to a particular protocol. I want to be specific to I want to be able to use different protocols, but also put it into a real world deployment, or make it look like it's a real world network, and then have real world scenarios, and we'll have like a change management window that goes into play with that. So lots of cool stuff that are possible to come out of this. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you will be as well, because that's all what I'm all about, is the real world stuff, because that's what we need anyway. Not focused on any specific certification, but getting the networks built and having certain requirements into play and getting those requirements met. So with that being said, we're kind of design meets design, engineering, and implementation all kind of eventually bleed together and become a holistic solution. So I'm looking forward to all of this. Hopefully you guys will be as well. Hopefully it'll be well received, and will give those folks that are maybe at the CCNA level a real world look at networking, and get me back in the CLI for a little bit. So you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Thanks so much for stopping by, watching Tech Support Thursday, Ticket 17. I'll catch all of you in the next video.